For 63 years now, the governments of North and South Korea have been in a political stare-down across a heavily guarded border and a demilitarized zone. The two media scenes could not be more different. North Korea's media are among the world's most censored, with just one television network, a state-run mouthpiece, pumping out the government line. Down south, journalists have to watch what they say about their neighbor. A vague, antiquated law prohibits the publishing of anything sympathetic to North Korea. Operating under the radar is a growing network of North Korean citizen reporters who work with media outlets based in Seoul, funded by the U.S. and staffed with defectors from the North. Equipped with not much more than mobile phones, those sources smuggle information out of North Korea that gets picked up by the mainstream media. They take risks with the apparent aim of showing the real North Korea to the rest of the world. There are journalistic issues, however. How does one assess the credibility of invisible sources? How can one begin to verify what they're reporting? The Listening Post's Gauri Sharma now on an underground network that's gathering news in North Korea.
The mystery of the woman in North Korea is over.
July 2012. Global news media is abuzz with news of Kim Jong-un's wife.
South Korea has confirmed carrying out its third nuclear test.
February 2013. North Korea's third nuclear test makes headlines. When former basketball player Dennis Rodman meets with the supreme leader, news outlets around the world cannot get enough of the story. The more inexplicable North Korea's actions get, the more isolated and hermetic the country becomes, the more journalists it locks out, the more information it locks in, the more the news media are fascinated by the story.
You can't really compare covering North Korea to covering any other region in the world in kind of normal journalism activities.
If you are very lucky to get inside North Korea, you are not going to see much, and you are not going to be shown much. Foreign journalists cannot freely move around. There are always North Korean minders, usually two of them, who follow the person.
And therefore, we have to be very careful in terms of how we judge what can be objective and try to isolate real fact from maybe exaggeration. Many of us haven't been there, and we don't get to talk to any of these sources.
Yes.
That's where journalists like Shin Joo-hyun step in. Shin, a South Korean, is the editor of a Seoul-based website, Daily NK. Set up in 2004, the site has become a regular source for global news organizations like the New York Times, CNN, and the BBC. Shin says he has an underground network of correspondents in North Korea, which feeds the outlet news from the inside.
People perceive North Korea to be a negative and surreal country. In particular, the US perceives North Korea to be very strange. However, we at Daily NK have managed to show how real North Koreans live, their ideologies and their dissatisfaction of the North Korean state.
If we rely on traditional news approaches towards North Korea, then we get a lot of focus on the security issues or the political issues, because that's easy for Western journalists to focus on.
We have revealed aspects of the country that the North Korean leadership does not want exposed, such as their concentration camps. Our website has come under cyber attacks from the North Korean state. The attacks closed our site for up to 5 hours at a time. The fact that we are getting this sort of reaction indicates that our coverage is having an impact.
There are a number of these Seoul-based organizations which have been reporting on North Korea from within North Korea. There is the Daily NK, which is probably the largest and most ambitious of them. There's Radio Free Chosen, which is a radio station. There is Rimjingang, which is a written publication that's authored by people in North Korea, and then the writings are smuggled out and edited in Japan. Rimjingang and the Daily NK in particular actually are creating and reporting brand new news, breaking stories, and really acting as a sort of traditional news outlet does.
We basically have very good information as a result about the daily life of the average North Korean. We know what she or he reads, eats, buys, how much he or she pays for a particular commodity, and so on. Just 10 years ago, 15 years ago, such knowledge was simply impossible.
What makes this kind of information available now is the growing web of undercover citizen reporters, North Koreans equipped with mobile phones, willing to take huge risks to report on happenings inside the country. Conversations are secretly recorded and video is covertly filmed in North Korea. Because the border with South Korea is heavily patrolled, the material is smuggled out over North Korea's northern border with China, and then couriered back south to media outlets based in Seoul.
There is no legal way of directly contacting North Koreans. 70% of North Korea's boundaries are shared with China, and because of this, Chinese mobile network services extend into territories along the border. Using these networks, we are able to make direct phone calls to North Korea. We also communicate via email sometimes. Secondly, we collect information from our sources ranging from public officials, people visiting their relatives, and our own correspondents. There are also other methods of communication I cannot disclose.
A number of these organizations started to kind of cultivate sources. They would work with them and actually teach them how to use video cameras, teach them how to edit using laptop computers, teach them how to record things, how to sort of do essential basic reporting. They even taught them how to follow people in a crowded space so they could sort of tail people, that kind of thing. So they did quite a bit of journalism education.
These kind of news organizations that are getting information out of the ground level of North Korean society are really opening up a window to this new world of information, this new picture. And so this information flow is bigger than we know, really.
But given the way the information is sourced and the number of hands it goes through, questions have been raised about the credibility of the sources, verification of the information, and how it can be manipulated before being broadcast in Seoul.
We do have more information today compared to at the end of 1990s, but that does not mean that the quality of the information can be so reliable. So we do have, in terms of quantity, more information and more awareness of what could be going on in North Korea. So that kind of sort of is helpful for a lot of scholars. But for journalists to directly quote that as one sourcing of information regarding North Korea, I think it sort of doesn't really stick to the good journalism practice.
It seems that international media relies very heavily on these kinds of sources. It may be very difficult for them to verify, but if we pay sources, which may be necessary in North Korea, then we should work very hard to verify that information and make sure these sources are not just giving information that they know is going to sell. So we need to have multiple sources and then cross-check between them to make sure that it's credible information.
For a country as secretive as North Korea, where authorities say government-approved news is the only news that counts, some news, however it is sourced, is better than none at all.